in just a second. We haven't started yet.
Seems to be people trying to connect.
They're connected. They're just not seeing the video yet, but they will as soon as we go live.
Oh.
In just 2 more seconds. All right. If people could refresh their page if they're not seeing the video should be up now. Thank you.
All right. Well, good evening, and thank you for joining us. And thank you for your patience. We were trying to help somebody get into the meeting, and so we delayed with the video for just a second. But you should be able to see us, you should be able to hear us, and you should be able to call in. And we will explain how you're going to be able to make your public comments and participate in this meeting in just a few minutes. My name is Judy Peterson. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Fairfax County Park Authority. Welcome to this virtual meeting. Good evening. It's I'm supposed to say it's 7, but it's actually 7:10. So forgive us for starting a little bit late. We're going to start this meeting. This is a staff-led virtual public meeting, and although we may have board of supervisors members or park board members in attendance, I want to state that this is a community meeting, and any elected and appointed officials will not be voting at this meeting on decisions related to the Grange. Tonight is about simply listening to your input. This meeting is being held virtually, conducted electronically through dedicated video and audio conferencing via public input. In just a few minutes, we're going to hear some brief welcoming remarks from Dranesville District Supervisor John Faust, and then we're going to hear a brief introduction from George Adler, founding advisor of the Great Falls Grange Foundation, followed by a presentation by Gary Pan, president of the Great Falls Grange Foundation, and then we'll hear other members of the community leadership team. Most importantly, tonight we're going to hear from you, and we again will tell you how to participate in the meeting. Let me begin by making some introductions. As I mentioned, we have Supervisor John Faust, and of course, Jane Edmondson with his staff. We also have, representing the Park Authority Board, we have Tim Hackman, who is our Dranesville District member. We also have staff this evening representing the agency, Deputy Director Amy Vosper and Deputy Director Sarah Baldwin. Some of the other members of our staff that I've seen that I'd like to just take a moment to introduce: Kurt Lewis, Director of Park Operations, Liz Crowell from RMD, let's see, Cindy Walsh, our Park Services Director, and behind the scenes, who you will hear from quite often, Hannah Krause and Joe Jasper. Joe is helping us make sure that your comments are going into the chat room and that I can see them. And Hannah is, she is behind the curtain, pulling all the rods and levers, making all the magic happen. So those are the folks who are here. If I've missed anybody, just send me an email via the chat, and I'll be glad to introduce them as well. Supervisor Faust, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And good evening, everyone. This meeting has been a very long time coming. So long that I probably don't remember all the background that facts as accurately as I should, but there are a lot of great historians in Great Falls. We know that. So I'm sure that someone will correct me if I get something wrong. But the key is I want to give a brief overview of the 10-year process that got us to this point. And I want to thank some key players who contributed to this successful effort. Before I get started, Judy kind of mentioned it, but I want to put in perspective why we're having this meeting. We have been working with many Great Falls community leaders. When I say we, the Park Authority and my office, and probably a lot of Great Falls community leaders and at least or close to 24 important Great Falls community organizations. It's been a real amazing community effort. Our goal has been to reach an agreement on between the Park Authority and the Great Falls Grange Foundation that would transfer operational responsibility for the Grange to the foundation. I believe there is a tentative agreement, and we're very confident that this is what we've done and what the community representatives have done, negotiated, is in the best interest of all of Great Falls. There's no doubt in my mind. However, there has not been a meeting like this where everyone, not just the community leaders and the organizations that have been participating in the negotiations, but everyone in Great Falls has an opportunity to express their opinion, ask questions, and ask for clarifications. Whatever you need to know, that's why we're here tonight. So anyway, let me. The history of the matter goes back to at least 2012, and I'm not going to take a day by day to get us to where we're at today, but I will take a very broad overview and say that it started because George Adler and Michael Vandergraff, I think, at the time, were very interested in trying to create a convert the Grange into a community center for, that could be used by the Great Falls community. George and I had several conversations along the way. Basically, he got me to agree that I would ask the Park Authority to enter into an agreement that would lease the property to a Great Falls citizens group. By the way, he would say, you've got to get the Grange ADA accessible before we're going to accept it. I'm like, okay. So anyway, the first part was easy, much easier than I thought. The Park Authority, I told them what I wanted, prepared for a difficult negotiation. Kirk Kincannon and his team showed up in my office, sat down. I said something like, Kirk, I really want this to happen. And he says, we'll make it happen. I'm like, that's it. That was a negotiation. They were so cooperative. They've been, Park Authority's been amazing since this thing was brought to light initially. The second one was a little more difficult. We had to come up with $500,000, but we got it. Got the Grange is now ADA accessible. So, as I mentioned, this process started in 2012. It's now 2022. I will let others talk about the agreements that have been reached and the plans that have been prepared for use of the facilities. I just want to conclude by saying that the residents of Great Falls are very lucky. There were so many who worked hard and patiently to get us to this point. You will hear from some of them tonight. Before I sign off, I want to give a special thanks to Amy Vosper of the Park Authority staff. She's been very, very patient, hardworking, just amazing, awesome throughout the discussions, never gave up working to get us to an agreement. Thank you so much, Amy, and all the Park Authority staff. I know, Sarah, you were there in that first meeting, I think, with Kirk, going back a long time. So I also want to thank Gary Pan for stepping up and stepping in and taking point on behalf of the foundation. Gary helped, really helped finalize the negotiations. As always, the Great Falls Citizens Association was very supportive. Thank you, Bill Canis and your team. I also have to, bring this, the guy I've got to mention is George Adler. What passion. I am sure most of you know him. I know how significantly he has contributed to the Great Falls community over the years. He's a very competent individual, very, a very good leader. But he had a vision, and that vision was to create a community center for Great Falls. And through our many discussions over the years, 10 years, I've really learned to appreciate how much George loves Great Falls and loves the residents of Great Falls. And to him, this was just a mission of love. And George, congratulations. You pulled it off. And we're all very, very grateful that you did. So Great Falls is a great place, but the one thing it has not had is an official community center. And I think we're getting one step closer to making that no longer the case. The Grange can be a really awesome community center. So it's been a pleasure working with you all on this. And I now turn it over to my good friend, George Adler. George.
George, we can't hear you. If you would
You're
unmute-
muted, I think, George.
We need you to unmute your microphone. Or perhaps he's going to come in through the phone. Hannah, perhaps you can help him.
Hello, can you hear us? Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Okay, George, you are going to have to step away from the computer. or the
Hello?
other-
Hello?
Yes.
Yes,
now
we
can
hear you.
but- Yes, go ahead.
Wendy. It's Stacy. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear
Please,
you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm gonna be very brief. I'm struggling with the telephones, but I will really like to emphasize the extraordinary cooperation that in these past 10 years, in this beautiful journey, I have received from John Faust, from Parks Authority, from Amy, from tremendous amount of organizations in Great Falls who have consistently given us the support and the encouragement, and it allowed us to keep going for what it was an experimental contract that being one of the first ones, it was twice as more difficult than what I hope it will be in the future for another communities. Thank you again. Thank you a million for such a cooperation. It's a dream. I have been in Great Falls as a business person for 42 years. I love it. I want to be part of leaving a legacy that all future residents of Great Falls can enjoy, and hopefully to be able to see us eye to eye, to shake hands, to embrace, to work together, and to preserve Great Falls as a very small town with a great heart, a great heart. Thank you again to everybody. And I hope that now the presentation that Gary Penn will make will answer a lot of your questions. And I hope that we will see us in great events in that beautiful place. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful words. We appreciate it. I'm sure your colleagues and members of the community do as well. At this point, I'd like to ask you if you might be able to, there we are. Okay, we're muted. And Gary Pan is going to present the presentation. Hannah, if you would bring that up, please.
Super, Hannah. Judy, thank you very much. And Supervisor Faust and Amy, your teams have been fantastic to work with. And so we're really excited about being at this point. Can everyone hear me okay? All right, excellent.
Yes.
Well, you know what, George Adler, you know, he and Supervisor Faust gave some history here. And George remarked that he's been in this community 42 years. So I've only been here for 22 years, and I feel like I got to catch up to him. But along that journey, during that time, I got to tell you, I raised my 3 boys in Great Falls, and I love Great Falls just like all of you do. And, you know, I've had the opportunity to have my kids play in sports. They would go to the field behind the Grange, right? to play soccer or baseball. And I was always a little uncomfortable because I didn't know what the Grange was. I didn't come from that type of background, and I didn't know. I actually thought it was like a more of a religious, very special place, and I kind of stayed away from it, trying to be respectful. It was when we had the performance of Harvey that came over to the Grange, and I heard about it, and actually Bill Candace was there as well, and I said, I got to go check this out. This is going to be cool. So I walked into the Grange to see the performance, and I was like, this is a treasure. This is an amazing place, and we actually need to figure out how to, promote it more in the community. So I'd like to start off with just explaining what the Grange is all about. So if I can go to the next slide. So we all know, hopefully, where the Grange is. It's right on Georgetown Pike. It's close to the library. As I referenced, it's close to the fields as well. It's in the heart of Great Falls, and we consider it the epicenter of Great Falls in a lot of ways. And while it's been the epicenter, for years and years, over time, it just really started to get less and less use from the general public. So, we're really excited about being at this point. So next slide. I want to go over what the Grange and what this agreement includes. So if you can look at the graphic, number one would depict the Grange Hall, and a lot of us pass by it all the time. And number two would depict the Forestville Schoolhouse, which actually predates the Grange. And these are very significant historical sites in our community. A third area, which is immediately behind the Grange, is depicted by number three, which is a Grange Picnic Pavilion. That's an older pavilion because there's a newer one over by what is number four. And then on the graph, you would also see the ball fields for number five. So what the Grange complex is comprised of is number 1, 2, and 3. So it's the Grange Hall, the Forestville Schoolhouse, and then the pavilion immediately behind the Grange. So it doesn't actually involve the other physical assets that are further back in the property, right? So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Also, just on this graph, it's actually helpful just to note that we have Georgetown Pike, and then to the right on the graphic, we have the library to the bottom of the graphic, and above at the top of the graphic is Innsbrook Avenue, right? Next slide, please. All right, this has been a great journey, as Supervisor Faust and George Adler had mentioned, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about how the Great Falls Grange Foundation is constructed. It's really not about individuals. While we have individuals listed here, it's about organizations, community organizations, right? The way we chartered this organization, the foundation, was we wanted to have organizational representation on our board with individual leaders within those organizations. So it wasn't just like one person that was actually kind of being on the board. It was actually the entire membership of each of these organizations. So George actually initially came in through the Great Falls Business Association, but he's actually, since he has been here the longest, he's our leader here and an ex officio member, not representing any particular organization, but giving us a lot of wisdom along the way. I'm the president of the Rotary Club in Great Falls, so I represent the Rotary Club. Bill Candace, who all of you know, is from GFCA, Great Falls Citizens Association, and Linda Thompson, she is the president of the Optimist Club, and she has been here probably from the beginning as well as George, and has a lot of, since she has been part of this community for many, many generations, has a lot of institutional knowledge and perspective to share with all of our members. In addition to that, we have committee members, and I want to just highlight them right here. We have John McKeon, who has been our pro bono attorney for many, many years, helped us do a lot of heavy lifting in regards to our establishment of the foundation, as well as our 501c3 status. We have Marilee Fredenberg, who is new here, but has energized our group and focused principally in the area of marketing and project manager and keeping our board on task. We have Charles Owen, who is on our landscape committee, and you'll be hearing more from him later. Candace Campbell, also on the landscaping committee. Eamon McCrane from the Suburb Great Falls liaison. Nancy Knight, who has expertise in event planning and lives very close to the property, is also on our committee and has offered a ton of energy for the board as well. Kim Abod, she actually is our Innsbrook Avenue liaison, and she also looks at things from a historical perspective in preservation and has a lot of deep contacts throughout the Commonwealth that are really valuable in regards to helping us understand how do we best preserve the Grange complex, and also, importantly, how do we try to pursue grants from the Commonwealth and other entities to try to make sure that we preserve the Grange. Eleanor Anderson, also on the landscaping committee, she's been very active with Ford. Jerry Peters, landscaping committee, and very involved in the committee in regards to the environment. And Eileen Curtis, who is a previous Rotary Club president, but also comes from the Dulles Chamber and is going to help with fundraising. So most all these names you probably have heard of at one point in our community, and that's what makes this really exciting. So thank you very much. Next slide. So we have some key objectives, and we want to actually, as I said, we believe that the Great Falls Grange should be the epicenter, of the community. We don't have, we want to make sure it's a place for us to gather, for us to actually feel comfortable with, and to be part of our home. As most of you know, we don't have a lot of indoor assets for meetings and stuff like that. Sure, we can go to the library, we can go to some of the public schools, we can actually maybe try to grab a reservation at Starbucks or something like that, but we don't have a lot of venues that are available for us for larger groups, and that's been a challenge, and particularly in contrast to other neighboring communities. So what do we want to do? We actually want to beautify the Grange. We want to improve it. We pass by it all the time. We have actually a lot of people who pass through on Tourist Town Pike, and they see it as well. We want to actually make sure that we, improve the general Grange complex and all of the lands, all the grounds around it, to bring it up to the standard that we would expect. We also want to make sure that we're maintaining the historical integrity of the property. So what does that involve? It involves landscaping. We want to deal with the internal aesthetics and comfort, and we want to improve the safety in the building and the overall property. So those are the things that we want to do. Next slide, please. All right. So we want to make the Grange a vibrant destination for the members of our community and people from outside of the community. We want it to be, something that's used for educational purposes, weddings, business meetings, other activities within our community. We want to designate the foundation as a community center in Great Falls, create a space for the community to gather for celebrations, meetings, and performances, kind of like the Harvey event. We recently had some bands play there as well, and that was a great gathering. So these are great opportunities for us to collect. We want to preserve the historical nature of the Grange complex. These are treasures, and if we don't take care of them enough or invest enough into them, they're over time going to deteriorate, and that's the challenge. We actually have done. We hired a professional commercial inspector of properties to come in and give us an entire report in regards to what are some of the challenges that we should anticipate right now, down the road, and in the future in regards to these properties. And so it was really helpful because we were able to work with the Fairfax County Parks Authority to make sure that those things were brought up to speed and major issues could be addressed immediately. And we have a list of other things that, down the road, we'll work out in regards to whether the foundation will be able to cover some of those expenses, or if we need to rely on grants or go to the county. We also want to improve the landscaping again. So that's where Charles Owen and his team are going to come into play. We have a lot of people who are very invested into trying to beautify it. I mentioned about the historical information on Great Falls. I didn't, but if you've been into the Grange, you can see that we have bookshelves back in the back part of the Grange, and there's historical pictures, photos, and other things. That's really cool for a lot of people who come to visit, and it really gives a historical perspective in regards to the journey that the Grange complex has gone through. And I think it's really important for us to keep that history alive, particularly since we recently the Great Falls Historical Society kind of has disbanded. I think that we need to make sure that we continue to keep that history perspective alive. Eventually, we'd like to have the foundation become self-funding. Okay, and so we are going to be continue to charge fees for events, but eventually we'd like to have a scenario where our community organizations would be able to pay a discounted rate compared to the public organization, excuse me, the general public. So eventually, if we believe that if we improve the overall aesthetics and the appeal of the properties, that we will have the opportunity to market it more effectively and generate more revenue to offset any discounts that we might be able to provide to the nonprofits in our community. Next slide, please. All right, so we have these supporting organizations, and recently we had Charles Owen step up. He's a longtime Great Falls resident, and he's a president of Fine Landscapes, and he's done a lot of projects throughout our community. Charles actually stepped up in regards to trying to organize 6 local landscaping companies to focus a lot of their attention and resources to try to help out with this project. So we're really excited about having them on board, Charles on board, and we will share some more information about what their plans are on future slides. In addition, we actually had a couple of months ago, we had a meeting of organizations in the community at the Grange. And we actually showcased some of the things that we're working on. We asked for their commitment in support of this effort. And part of that resulted in the Adopt the Grange. So we have actually a roster of organizations that are going to kind of rotate to take care of the Grange, and do some, pickup and stuff like that, maybe some light landscaping. And so, again, that's an indication of the interest of our community organizations and their members to support this effort. Next slide, please. All right. I'm not going to steal all of Charles's thunder because he's going to talk a little bit about this, but I referenced, what the potential is here in regards to the landscaping. And we have a great rendering here that Charles prepared, and he's going to be going into it a little bit more detail, but I wanted to give you kind of like an appetizer, whet your appetite here. So it promises to be an incredible effort and will significantly change, the overall landscape and appeal. And we'll also look at things from a perspective of what is, appropriate for our area in regards to native plants. Next slide, please. All right, so, we have some history we can talk about. We actually established the foundation as a 501c3 nonprofit a couple years ago. We have 4 committees that have been established that would include the landscaping, the marketing committee, the liaison to the Fairfax County Parks Authority, and I'm missing one. I can't remember what it is, but we have a structure that's really important. Events and promotion from that perspective. So those are the 4. We have also had that professional inspection report developed, and that has been a tremendous resource in regards to understanding what responsibilities would be appropriate for which parties. We have our partnership agreement. We've had, before COVID came, we were actually, the foundation was prepared to step in and go forward, okay? And we actually, we were just about to do it when COVID was announced, and it's actually pretty fortunate for the foundation because we would have been not able to operate it for a long time without any revenue. So here we are right now. We're excited about finalizing these negotiations, establishing the license agreement, and preparing for when things eventually get back to normal. It's there's a leap of faith here in some ways, but eventually we will get back to normal, and we're confident that we need to go forward aggressively now in preparation for that, because in the fall we'd like to see that we can go back to taking reservations and other events. We actually hope that even in the summer we will be able to do that. I referenced some of the events that we've had recently. We have had a pilot event. So as part of the effort to try to become familiar with how to operate the Grange, we had a For the Love of Great Falls event. And that was, we had very light marketing of it because we didn't want to have a lot of people, but we had a lot of interest. So we had about 200 people come to this event, and it was all pretty much by word of mouth. So that's an indication of how much interest in the community there is for this type of situation. We also have focused on our marketing and our branding. We updated our logo, and it was on at the top upper left-hand corner. We're really excited about it. We think it's a great rendering and reflects what the Grange is all about. And also we have started we focused on our pricing model. Okay, so we've developed pricing models, but of course that's something that is going to be, subject to some change over time, depending on the circumstances going forward. We also updated our website. So gfgrange.org, and hopefully, if you have a chance soon, you can go visit that site. It has actually got a lot of information that we're covering here, but also gives you a little bit more insight in regards to where we want to go. We understand the importance of coordinating and collaborating with other organizations. So we've actually reached out to Turner Farm Foundation, Friends of Colvin Run. I've talked about Friends of Riverbend Park, and I can never say the other park's name in McLean, but
Army John.
yes, thank you so much. I can never say it, but those have been great resources in regards to us understanding what some of the challenges are, but also some of the opportunities, and how to get around things so we can go move forward. We actually also reached out to our local neighbors because we're very sensitive to them. I mentioned that Nancy Knight and Kim Abod are pretty close, but we reached out to other neighbors on the other side, closer to Great Falls Elementary School in the Deerfield Pond community, just to make sure that people understand what's going on and they have an opportunity to voice any concerns early. And we're also very sensitive to the scenario in regards to neighbors, they might not like all this loud noise and stuff like that at times, but but if we communicate with them in advance about some of the things, we can consider some of the things to help improve their situation and make sure that we're good neighbors. I mentioned that grant and funding, Preservation Virginia, we actually met with them as well, and they're very excited about this type of project. They hunt for historical properties to try to invest in, and they were very enthusiastic about what we're doing here at the Grange. So excited about that. Next slide, please. All right, I referenced the website. Please go and visit this. It will change over time, but it is a fantastic rendering and I think it has a lot of appeal. So we've gotten a lot of very positive feedback about the website already. So please go visit that. Next slide. All right, so what are the next steps? We want to have this town hall meeting, wanted to make sure everyone's on the same page because we're trying to drive towards finalizing the license agreement between Fairfax County Parks Authority and the foundation, Great Falls Grange Foundation. So this is a very important step. We actually are excited about this, particularly because we want to actually start to schedule out our fundraising events. So to take on this type of endeavor, we have a business plan that incorporates a significant amount of fundraising. to offset, some of the major improvements that we're interested in doing. So we also need to make sure that we have the ability to receive online donations. So we're working that out. As you can hear from our presentation, we're looking at doing some significant site improvements. We're working with the county very closely to try to figure out how we can get access to water for irrigation, as an example. So that's very important. We're also improving our marketing dramatically, and we're open for reservations. So you can contact us through the website or any one of our board members or committee members to make a reservation or try to get access to the facility to take a tour. All right. Next slide. Oh, there we go. So anyway, thank you so much for this. This is a great opportunity to share what we've been working on for a long time. A lot of other people long before even myself. But it's all about our community. It's trying to make a difference. It's trying to make sure we can take care of a treasure that's local, and we can bring our community back together. Particularly after COVID, where people have been very isolated. Downstream, when we get back to normal, people are anxious to come out. What we found is that people are very interested in taking tours recently because we've had a backlog in regards to events, particularly weddings, right? So and birthday parties. So this is a great time to come out and start to plan forward. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Gary. We appreciate that input and that great presentation. I have a list of other folks in the meeting this evening that are going to want to speak. And so I'll go down the list and we'll just ask you to identify yourself for the record and then to unmute yourself. So Linda Thompson, representing the Optimist Club of Great Falls. Did you wish to speak? We need you to unmute. There we go.
Yep. Oh, good. Thank you. So, so what is the Great Falls Optimist Club? No, we don't buy the lawnmower before we sow the grass seed. But what we do is support our youth in many ways to help them grow up as creative, responsible, strong American citizens. That's what the optimism is all about. So the Great Falls Optimist Club is a member of the Optimist International Organization, whose mission is to support our youth in their growth, both physically and academically, with emphasis on values of fairness, leadership, community, and strength. You may already have seen us for years at the Great Falls Children's Spring Festival until the pandemic. And we were at George Adler was part of that whole thing at the same time. So we've been here for a long time. We're back on to the Spring Festival again. We're going to be at the soccer fields behind the post office on May 15th from 1 to 4. So pass that information along. Also, you have seen us at the Village Green Gazebo on October 31st with a professional photographer as part of the Halloween Spooktacular. Also at the 4th of July parade and supporting our baseball, softball, and rugby youth sports. Perhaps lesser known is our Great Falls Optimist Club oratorical and essay contests, our Helping Hands Awards for otherwise unrecognized elementary students, and holiday meals support for needy families. The junior optimists we sponsor at Langley High School are also great assets for the community with their blankets for the homeless, letters to our troops at Thanksgiving time, canned food drives for the homeless, etc. In order to benefit the community further, we have long awaited, 10 years and counting, the opportunity to use the Grange venues, including the schoolhouse and the pavilion, for various other youth-oriented community events and fundraiser ideas, such as the Battle of the Bands. This is my favorite, Battle of the Bands for both Langley High School and Cooper Intermediate. I thought that would be a great use of the Grange to do that. I thought that the Optimist Club would support low cost or no cost tutors during the week from junior Optimist volunteers and perhaps some students from George Mason University for the high schoolers to be available for tutoring. The cotillion would be great in the Grange Hall. Youth groups such as Girl Scouts and Boy Scout meetings and awards programs. Sports groups, awards programs. youth coaching for art, drama, debate clubs, etc., scavenger hunts, age specific, movie night for several different age groups, and maybe even inspirational speakers for students and their parents about planning their future, for example. Anyway, we welcome new ideas and new members as well to help with giving back to the youth of Great Falls and McLean. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Linda. We appreciate it. Our next speaker is Bill Canis. Bill is representing the Great Falls Citizens Association. Bill?
Thank you very much. And I want to thank Supervisor Faust and Jane for being with us tonight, and everyone from the Park Authority who've been so supportive over the years. I think probably the Great Falls Citizens Association doesn't need an introduction to the audience tonight. We've been trying to represent Great Falls with our elected leaders and other officials since 1968. And GFCA was pleased to be a charter member of the Great Falls Grange Foundation back 10 years ago when George Adler appeared before our board and first made the proposal, which at the time I was just a lowly board member there at GFCA. And it seemed like it was an almost impossible dream that he had. And yet 10 years of hard work have brought us to this point with many people involved who've already been cited here tonight. So I won't repeat that. I would like to thank Eric Knudsen, who was my predecessor. Eric labored for many, many years as our representative, the GFC representative to the Grange Foundation. And I wanted to particularly thank him and single him for a lot of the hard work that he did to also get us to this point tonight. What is the goal? Why would GFCA care about this facility? I think Gary's PowerPoint presentation gave all of the reasons that we wanted to be engaged. We feel that there's a need for some type of community center here. John Faust referenced that in his remarks as well. And the Grange and the old schoolhouse seem to be destined to be that type of center for Great Falls because we don't have an alternative interior space that would meet those. We don't have something like the McLean Community Center, for example. And whether we have one someday in the future, it's hard to tell. But for the foreseeable future, these buildings offer that great opportunity, not just for GFCA, but for the Optimists, for the Garden Club, for the Great Falls Farmers Market in the wintertime, for our studio arts groups. There's a whole cross-section of organizations in this town that would easily use those two buildings. Gary mentioned his attendance at the Harvey production a few years ago. When the McLean Community Center was closed, they used the Grange to put on several nights of production of Harvey. And I also went to one of those, and I have to say in my 20 years of living in Great Falls, it is probably the most magical night I had in Great Falls to sit in the Grange, set up as a theater and filled, by the way, with actors putting on a delightful play on the stage. I looked around and I said to myself, am I really in Great Falls, Virginia? Is there really a theatrical event being posted here and a turnout crowd in our most historic building? I almost had to pinch myself, but it was true. And we want to have more opportunities like that for this community to grow and thrive, to celebrate, to educate our young people, not only on the environment and history, also to have wild political debates between candidates for supervisor and other positions as we've had in the past, but with more modern facilities than what we've had so far. I just wanted to also have a little bit of a throwback here, which I think is relevant for us to remember tonight, about the creation of these buildings in, of course, back in 1929 and the schools long before that. But if you go back to 1980, what's now the schoolhouse, what we call it the old schoolhouse, the old Forestville schoolhouse, was actually half a post office and half a bank. And at that time, it was determined that they might be sold. And under the Fairfax County zoning rules, that little corner was designated as commercial. And a group of Great Falls residents organized and said, we can't have our old schoolhouse knocked down and replaced with a 7-Eleven or something like that. We've got to do something about it. And they organized themselves into Great Falls Heritage, a special nonprofit 501c3 organization, to buy the old schoolhouse building. And in fact, they did buy it. And they did that not only by proceeds from residents in this community, but also with financial support from the Fairfax County Park Authority. And the most delicious thing in this whole arrangement was that our then supervisor, Nancy Falk, was behind the initiative from the beginning and helped make it happen. So think about it. The ingredients were a group of dedicated residents, the Fairfax County Park Authority, and a supervisor who saw the vision and wanted to help make it happen. If that rings a bell with you, then we perhaps are on the right track tonight. And for that history background, by the way, I didn't live here in 1980, but Karen Washburn and Ruth Carver and Glenn Schobloom did. And so I did some fact checking with them before this to make sure that what I was saying is in fact what happened and is a recollection of people who actually lived here. And we owe a great deal to that whole process. And to me, it's remarkable that we have those same ingredients now: dedicated residents, Supervisor Faust, and a whole new generation of executives at the Park Authority, all throwing in to try to make this thing work. And so I really do want to say thank you to everyone who's been doing that. And it's an exciting time to create a new focal point in our community. So thank you very much for everyone who's been doing this. I also want to now turn to Charles Owen. I think the first tangible signs of renewal are going to be the work that he unleashes at the Grange and the old schoolhouse. And he's put a lot of thought into it. We do have a landscaping committee on the Grange Foundation board. And so Charles has come up with these plans himself, but the members of the garden club have reviewed them, as has Jerry Peters, who is, many of you know, is one of our prominent environmentalists here in town. And they have all made a few suggestions and otherwise said, let's get to work and do that. And we hope that this is a project that we can unfold here this spring. So in a matter of months, we may see the transformation begin. So at this point, I want to turn the floor over to Charles Owen and thank him for his tremendous leadership on a very important part of this revival.
Good evening.
Allen, go ahead. And Hannah, if you'd bring up his slide in a moment.
Can you guys hear me all right? Thank you very much. Wow. First of all, let me say I'm humbled to follow such great speakers and such committed members of the committee and the Great Falls area. Let me say that I'm been in the community for 25 years in the Great Falls community, and I started my landscape design business when I was a junior in high school in 1974. So George, I've got 48 years. Okay, bad joke. Anyway, so thank you, Representative Faust. Thank you, Gary Pan, for your tireless efforts. Thank you, members of the committee. Thank you to the Park Authority. And thank you very much for the constituents that are paying attention to this very, very valued project. I'll say that the design efforts are primarily to advocate the use of native plant species so that we can provide an opportunity for native insects to persist and native fauna to take advantage of these native plants. We've brought in so many exotic plants. I'm culpable of that. But this gives us one opportunity to really demonstrate how native plants can be used in an aesthetic way and in a very beneficial way. So that was really the predominant design focus for this project. There are also some practical sides of things where we would like to provide a little bit of screening of the new neighborhood on the other side of Innsbruck Avenue, and also provide some screening from the closest neighbor there on Innsbruck. I think her name is Han. I could be wrong. In any event, we've broken up the garden areas into groupings as a way to attack the areas by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually, there are 9 different areas of interest. And incredibly, in these different areas, there are basically different plant requirements. We have shade, we have dry shade, we have wet areas, we have wet shaded areas, we have full sun areas, we have screening requirements, we have a number of different applications that we've entertained and made suggestions for this. We've had some nice interface with the Great Falls Garden Club, and Candace Campbell offered some great suggestions, and we're very thankful for that. So I guess what it really comes down to is, beyond the design, is how do we get community support to do such a thing so that it doesn't cost anything to the community. So most everybody knows the Old Brogue, and the Old Brogue happens to be a place where a lot of the local landscape guys meet and hang out. And I've been able to gather these folks, and they include SAB Tree Service, Riverbend Tree and Landscape, Pots and Plants with the little nursery at the right outside of Great Falls, Sisson Landscape, Rawson Landscape, and Fine Landscapes. So we have 6 willing participants to not only provide the labor and the materials, but also the follow-on maintenance of the project. So we thank those folks very much. But even beyond that, we have the assistance of the Boy Scout troop led by Gary Pan. And we have the, I guess, consultancy of the Great Falls Garden Club. And there are others. Mr. Peters, for instance, is very instrumental in helping with the background area in the forestation area, and has given great advice in terms of how we'd like to see the legacy trees protected. We'd like to plant some large canopy trees and some flowering trees that are native. We'd like to plant some understory shrubs and perennials. We'd like to provide pollinator plants for Kim Abod's bees that she keeps just down the road. Those pollinators are absolutely vital to the success of agriculture in this country. That's the general overview. I'm not going to get into the specifics of each individual plant. We can do that offline. But I think that sort of summarizes the big effect. I will say that the very first thing that we would want to do is bring this community of landscape contractors and endorse the help of the Boy Scouts to participate in doing the heavy lifting, which is really the tilling of the soil and importation of great leaf mold and good soil additives in order to have a successful project here. So I think we envision this project it could take as long as 18 months. In other words, we may do some of the plantings immediately around the Grange structure for aesthetic reasons, and then concentrate around the schoolhouse. But most particularly, we want to get the screening trees in for the adjacent neighbor, and also to create a little bit of buffering vis-a-vis the new neighborhood that's going in. So I think that's what I've got for now. And if there are any questions or anybody would like to ask anything else, I'm happy to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. We will we'll take questions as we get into that part of the program here. Is there anybody in the committee that is in our group right now that wants to speak before we go out to the public and look at some of the comments from them? Mr. Pan?
Judy, thank you very much. Charles was talking about, having some of the projects start as early as, the spring. And he's talking about moving dirt. And of course, as a scoutmaster, I know all my scouts they're very comfortable getting dirty. So they're very excited about this. But I did want to make a couple comments in regards to the Rotary Club of Great Falls as well, and the reason why we're committed. When we think about Rotary, there's many different levels. We think about it from a global perspective, and we work on, trying to eradicate polio, right? And then nationally, we go out, we try to help, deal with natural disasters and supporting people. And as we get closer and closer to our specific community, our neighborhood, it's hard for us to find projects in a lot of ways. We do things like we support Lift Me Up. We have the first time campers over at Wolf Trap. Emery Ruckers or Cornerstones. We have a lot of great places, but we have not enough in our specific area. One of the things that for Rotary, our motto is service above self. And what we want to do is actually, our club members are anxious to, roll up their sleeves. We already do things in regards to beautification of Georgetown Pike, and we pick up litter across, on the road there. But this is an opportunity for us to plug in and, really help our community and be proud of, our support for the community in regards to beautifying the Grange and this important treasure, like I said before, in the heart of our community. So I did want to just add that. So that's the reason why Rotary is so excited about this type of project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have about 70 people who are joining us, watching us. And so I feel it's very important that we move forward to get their comments so we don't run out of time. It's time to hear from you. And you can post your comments in the comment box to the right of this video or just below it. I'm going to read those comments aloud and we'll respond one at a time. If you can't see the chat, please go ahead and refresh your webpage. And if you would like to voice your comments, please call in to 855-925-2801. Go ahead and enter the meeting code 4117 and press star for more options. When you want to join the speaker queue, you'll press option 3. And that will place you next in line to speak, but you'll also be able to still listen to the meeting. When it is your turn to speak, we're going to let you know that we're ready for your call, and the pre-recorded voice is going to prompt you and tell you that it's your turn. We ask you for ADA requirements and so that the community you live in knows who you are to state your name. Participants speaking as individuals will have 3 minutes to speak, and persons representing groups or organizations will have 5 minutes. If we have 70 people that want to speak, I would ask everybody to please keep that in mind, that 3 might be a better number for this evening. Each organization can have 1 official 5-minute speaker. And again, please, we ask you to stay on topic. We're going to consider all comments presented tonight. So let's go ahead and begin. And I'm going to start with those comments that I see in the box already. And Tim Hackman from the Park Authority Board, he thanked Gary and George, and he has said that he has heard nothing but positive excitement from the community about this opportunity. Dan Lundeen, he said, great summary, Gary. What a fantastic foundation and project. Elizabeth Hubner, When I moved here 32 years ago, the Great Falls Players would put on 2 to 3 productions a year, and my neighbor, Denny Whitson, was in charge of designing the sets, and I and my husband often got roped into it. So thank you for those comments. Got roped into painting sets, I'm sorry. There's some other comments above that. Most of those comments, a lot of them had to do with getting into the meeting, but John Ohlfelder, he said, have the buildings had a full third-party inspection from top to bottom? Who's going to be responsible for ongoing maintenance and repairs? An inspection report would give everybody a much clearer picture of any current problems or issues, as well as a look forward to future maintenance expenses. Would somebody like to address that question, please?
Yes, I'd like to have Linda Thompson address that.
Ms. Thompson?
You're on
You
mute.
have to unmute. You're muted. You're still muted. There you go.
Okay,
Please
I'm-
go ahead.
you're good.
Okay, I'm good. All right, John, we actually did a full commercial inspection on both of the buildings before the pandemic started last year, right before we were getting ready to sign the agreement back then. And we did a absolutely top to bottom inspection. We have negotiated different things. The Park Authority was very good about responding to certain urgent things that needed to be done. Some of the aesthetic stuff is going to be upon the Grange Foundation to take care of, and we will work together to get the things done that need to be done. The foundation is mostly involved in maintenance and certain repairs. The Park Authority is responsible for the main systems, the roof, the septic, the well, etc. So I hope that helps to answer your questions. But we'll have future ability to answer more specific questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We also have a question from Jean. Will we be able to sign up for updates and event information? Anybody want to take that?
Nancy or Marilee, would you like to address that?
Hi, Gary. This is Marilee. Yes, anyone who is interested should go to the website. You can send us an email requesting more information, and we will have a contact form on there where you can submit a question and we can get back to you right away with more information.
Thank you. And I would just say on behalf of the Park Authority, when any of the documentation becomes final, any action by the Park Authority Board, we will also post it and we'll put it out in an information release. So we love an informed public. So right now, let's see, is there a copy of the draft license agreement available?
Yes, we have that. I'm not sure if Fairfax County Parks Authority wants us to post it anywhere in particular.
We can look at that after the meeting. We do have to brush it off from COVID.
Right. But it is really
we'll be
close
able
to the
to.
final. So, we can make that available to the public whenever they're comfortable.
All right, Phil Pfeiffer, he says the vision is wonderful and will be almost universally agreed to by the community. The issue has always been financial viability. I understand at times the necessity of build it and they will come, but if the Grange Foundation is not financially viable and able to generate revenue sufficient, who will bear the risk? What is the, let's see, Hannah, when you do that, you cover up my words. What is the parking availability for large events at the location? Gary,
right.
would you like to assign that out?
I don't know if George is available on the call. If not, the way that we have this is that this is this is a license agreement, and it's a multiple year license agreement term. But the county as well as the foundation have the ability to exit with notification. But that's not really our intention. I mean, we have a financial model that we're building based upon a fundraising event as early as I think it's this May, right? Where we're trying to we have a lot of people who are interested in donating to this already. So we already have pent up demand in regards to helping us with establishing that financial footing that is necessary for us to go forward. I'll tell you what, from our board perspective, that was something that we were very concerned about. I mean, we didn't want to have a situation where we just had, a couple of dimes in our pocket and we took on a major endeavor. We actually wanted to, make sure there was interest in regards to donations upfront that would help us. And then we also have a lot of people who are interested in donating through our upcoming fundraising events. George Adler is going to be chairing the fundraising committee, and with people like Eileen Curtis and others in our community, we're confident that we're going to be able to overcome that startup cost challenge. Bill, Candace?
Yeah, I just wanted to supplement what Gary said. The fundraise, in addition to charging for certain events such as weddings and parties, which we will get our soon understand what is the sweet spot of being able to rent it for that. And Nancy Knight has already had several groups come through who are interested in either renting it, as well as caterers who are able to provide some feedback on how well we can do that with a medium-sized building like this. But I also wanted to reemphasize what Gary said about fundraising. There will be a fundraising drive that this board and George Adler is going to drive forward. And we hope that the community is responsive to that. If I could go back to 1980 again, a group of individuals said they wanted to buy the old schoolhouse. If the community had never come forward with the resources to buy the old schoolhouse, there would be a 7-Eleven on that corner today. So there is going to be a challenge to this community to see if they're willing to help with the seed money that is going to be important to this foundation in its first year of existence. We start with no vast quantity of money sitting in a bank account. We need this community to respond to that. And we will be seeking grants, but we'll also be asking the community to say, hey, do you really want to have a beautiful community center here? Do you care about it? Will you kick in some dough at the beginning? All of that depends, the financial stability depends on that, as well as the commercial success of renting out those facilities. So to answer Phil's question, yes, it is an open question, but we hope that there is enough interest in this. And part of the reason for this meeting tonight is to let people know that this is not something that's just going to take place by itself. We don't have a huge federal grant from the infrastructure law to fund all of this. We're going to have to pull up some of our bootstraps ourselves right here in Great Falls.
Thank you. I want to remind folks that if they want to voice their comments via the phone, they can call in at 855-925-2801 and enter the meeting code 4117 and press star for more options. If you are sitting on the phone line right now, and we see that we do have several people on the phone lines, if you decide that you want to get into the speaker queue, go ahead and press option 3.
Judy, Tim Hackman, if I may just interrupt for a quick second and ask Gary if he would to also address the parking question that was raised. That should only take a few minutes. Thank you.
Go ahead, Gary.
Linda, you have the specific count of parking spaces, I think, right?
I can't remember the exact number, but I think we were talking about maybe close to 90 parking places. And so we have to limit the size of the events in order to accommodate that. So we're going to be upfront with any potential visitors.
Right, and the occupancy level for the Grange Hall as well as the schoolhouse is limited. But there is the opportunity for if there's insufficient parking, because we have a popular event for people to potentially park on, when the library isn't open over in their parking lot, and walk all the way to Georgetown Pike to the sidewalk and then come into the Grange complex. So there's other options there as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I don't believe we have any callers that have gone ahead and pressed number 3, and I don't see any other new comments in the comment box. So let me tell you where we go from here, and then I'll give everybody just one more last opportunity to finalize their thoughts. Public comment will continue. The public comment period is going to remain open until March 1st, and you can submit written comments. Those comments can be submitted via park mail at fairfaxcounty.gov. My understanding is that we'll be sharing any comments that come in with the foundation as well as the Park Authority Board. So is there anybody from our presenters group or the supervisor or any Park Authority Board folks who would like to have the last word of the evening?
Judy?
Yes, please.
First of all, thanks for a wonderful, wonderful presentation by all of you. That was very, very nice. Very well done. I did see John McGee has been with us the whole time, and I wanted to recognize him because he put in an amazing amount of legal work on behalf of the Great Falls community. Very much appreciate your contribution, John. Thank you all.
Thank you, Supervisor. And yes, thank you all. You guys have been a great audience, participants as well, and we appreciate it very much. So again, park mail at fairfaxcounty.gov for your comments. Oh, and we got one last comment. I'll go ahead and take this one from Julie Casso, the Arts of Great Falls. Our local nonprofit art foundation has supported this effort as a founding member of this group for 10 years, or 10 years ago. We completely support putting the responsibility of stewardship of our local facility in the hands of the people who will likely care the most. My experience is that local leaders have been hands-on and will do what it takes to make this venture successful. That's a great comment to end the night on. So thank you all. Be well and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Good evening, all.